I'm Alan. I come from Barcelona, from the infrastructure team. I'm a sysadmin. I work in Schibsted company. I don't know if anyone have heard about Schibsted. Schibsted is a media and classified company that has websites around 50 different countries. And so I'm gonna speak here about Mesos. One of the good things is that I don't have to sell any product here. So it's gonna be good for me because then I can start criticizing Mesos instead of like saying the good things about that. But even if I'm gonna say some of the stuff that we have found meanwhile we were building Mesos, the thing is that it's working for us. And so far, we haven't had any issues in production, so it's pretty good. So how much of you have heard about Mesos? Okay, how much have you used Mesos? Has anyone have it in production? Well, that's good. That's good. Okay, for those who don't know, Mesos is a multi-tenant cluster management system. The important thing about Mesos is that it does a really specific thing, but it does it really well. So basically, it does resource management of the cluster, it executes containers, has authorization, some other stuff, but it doesn't have much than that. And the difference from Mesos to another scheduler is basically that it has a two-level scheduler system. Basically, how it works is that Mesos controls the resources of the cluster, and then when an application wants to start using the resources, then it has to register to Mesos, and it has to say, I want to run things. And then Mesos will say, okay, I have these resources that you can use, and it's going to be the framework, or the application is called framework. It's going to be the framework that is going to decide which from those offers is going to accept, and which one of those offers it has to reject. So basically, like data location and that kind of stuff, when you're allocating resources in the cluster, it's a decision for the application and not for the cluster. Okay, so how do we use Mesos currently in Schibsted? We use different frameworks. We use Marathon for long-running services. We use Chronos for batch jobs. We have a framework developed by one of the websites in France, Le Bon Coin, for fraud detection. Right now we are working in Unify on a single cluster. And we also have a separated project. It's kind of like a POC that it works. That it's basically the ability to have a Mesos cluster in different providers in different locations and work with the same Mesos cluster, kind of like in a unified way, without having the problems of split brains. So I'm just gonna talk really quickly because I don't want to explain too much about like products or something like this. It's just like so you understand what it was like. For example, one of the problems that we had, we run quite a lot of Spark. The data engineers, they wanted to use Luigi. Luigi is an open source project from Spotify that is basically a workflow manager. And the thing is, Luigi doesn't really scale well, and also it doesn't come with a proper scheduler. Well, it doesn't build a scheduler, so you have to launch it the same way. The thing is that then we decided to use Chronos. Chronos basically it's kind of like a distributed batch system. You just say like, hey, I want to run this job, this Docker container at this time, and with these parameters, and Docker it just Chronos just like takes care of like running the jobs and reintents and manage failures, etc. This kind of sort of thing is quite critical for us that it works because it's just that part of the revenues are on base of the advertising. Advertising is focused advertising, so we need the data to be processed on time. So like the focused advertising works properly. Just to say one number, on peak time we are generating 250 gigabytes of data. So we run quite a lot of jobs and we have quite a lot of big cluster. The things I'm missing, Luigi will run a lot of Spark drivers, and those Spark drivers will execute the jobs against a Hadoop cluster that we have. So let's start speaking about Mesos. This phrase is mine. But it is true. So Mesos is like this really, really solid rock. It works really well, but it doesn't do too much. So like you cannot say, I'm going to use Mesos directly. No, you need a framework. And develop a framework is hard. Like you can develop a framework with like not too many lines of code, but to develop a proper framework that is distributed, that is fault tolerant, that is resilient, is hard. And you cannot trust me, but trust Netflix. This is a slide from a Netflix conference, and as you can see, it says writing a framework that's fault tolerant, scalable, and performant is really, really hard. And here I'm gonna just show one error with Chronos that we had. Basically, every certain time, it could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks, some kind of race condition, it makes to raise an exception. And Chronos decides that it's gonna disable the framework. It means that Mesos, it will not keep sending offers to Chronos. So the jobs will not run. This kind of a scenario, you would expect that the Chronos application, it will fail, but it doesn't. So the health checks works, you can register jobs, you can do whatever you want, but it's just like the jobs doesn't run. We had to fix this, making special health checks that it will check the framework if it's stable or not, and it will check which is the leader in the different Chronos instances, and if you get this situation, then it kills the leader, new leader election happens. The new leader, it will basically re-enable the framework. The good thing about Chronos is that it keeps a registry of all the tasks that it has to run in Zookeeper. So if we've missed a hit, in 10 seconds, 50 seconds, we will have a new leader. We will have re-enabled the framework. So the job will be executed. I have another from Marathon that was amazing, but I couldn't find the documentation about that. I lost it, but it just froze everything. So another thing that I want to speak about is the models from Mesos. So Mesos, they sell a little bit about, they sell themselves kind of like a distributed kernel. One of the good things about the Linux kernel is that it's modular and you can extend the functionality or change the functionality. Basically, Mesos wants to do the same with different components. So I implemented this in the version 0.2.1. And then created this one, which is amazing. It's the master contender and detector. Basically, if you check in the website, directly it says like you can change Zookeeper, which is amazing because we love Zookeeper, but it's too old school. So you say, okay, like I could write my own implementation and then I can start using console. But then you start checking the frameworks code. This is actually from Chronos, and you say that it's like the libraries and everything is super, super tight. So like in Mesos, like someone forgot to make an abstraction of the system for the leader election and the key value that it's using beneath. So it means that you don't just have to change Mesos, you also have to change the applications that are on top, which it just makes more work. Another scenario that we have, you also have the logger models in the version that we are actually using. By default, it writes into disk, but we are writing everything to S3. Everything logs, Luigi logs, Mesos logs. So we decided, we tried to write a custom container logger. After 3 weeks of just, trying to make it work, we understood what it's hell. And so we completely forgot about that, and we just get an application that's called Complainer for Cloudflare. Complainer, what it does is basically it checks the applications that are running on Mesos, and if it finds any failures, it would notify to Slack or whatever, and also it has a plugin to upload to S3. So we just hacked a little bit the code, so it does it for all the application. It uses roles and some sort of stuff, but basically we just get the same behavior that we were expecting. Okay, so to just like launch what we are doing in this project, this is more or less how it looks. Sorry about the slides. I like to call it lasagna infrastructure because it has a lot of layers. But as you can see, it's just not like I run Mesos and like everything works. You need a lot of different components. Also, there's some of the components that actually we use for or a specific use case. You will see that there is Mesos DNS there. I think it's really funny that you were talking about the Kubernetes DNS because this component sucks completely. Seriously. So I think everyone has the same problem. Okay. So some of the things that we find out with deployment is that, okay, we want to make immutable stuff because, when you launch in services in the cloud, then you start autoscale. If you have to provision, maybe the provision doesn't work, and then you have to handle this. It's better just like you make immutable, you put everything in there. But as you see, there is a lot of components, what it means that you have to put all the components inside the AMI, what it means that you have to make a pretty big AMI. Then the other step is we like kind of like one-button deployment with CloudFormation on a service. Usually you press CloudFormation and then everything it goes. But then when you have all those layers, it means that, okay, you boot the instance with CloudFormation. The instance, it will boot Mesos. Once Mesos is built, is up, then Marathon will start. Once Marathon is a start, then Chronos, it will be deployed inside Marathon. And when Chronos is deployed, then you can deploy your test job. It's kind of like a lot of steps. I have to say that it has worked, like for the build that we have right now, it has worked very, very good. 100% of the times. Before the next slide, I wanted to comment an example. We had an issue with Mesos that one of the nodes, it was misbehaving, not for Mesos, but something weird that we did in there. And basically the node, it was joining and leaving the cluster all the time. So when you schedule a job there, the node then leaves, task failed. And it took us, because we were not monitoring really well that part, and it took us a month to realize it, because everything was just working normally. Chronos will schedule the job, that job will fail, and then Chronos will realize about that job that it has failed. And then it would just launch it to another container in a matter of seconds. So everything was okay. So when you talk about Mesos, I don't know if you heard about this, but this is kind of like a suite on top of Mesos with like a proper environment, Mesos plus Decos. Basically, this with the help of Decos, it allows you to have a full environment that you can just like with the Decos tool, you can say, I want a Kafka, you just install and deploy it on top of it. One of the good things I recommend you if you're going to start with this, playing with Mesos, start with here, with this. If you're going to build something and you're going to invest a lot of this, then probably you want to forget about that because it's kind of like a black box. I do this, it works, it's perfectly amazingly when you want to do something that it's like not by default behavior, then it's like more problems. But it's a really, really nice solution for starting. And then the comparison between Kubernetes and Mesos, I think it's not fair because they don't do the same stuff. They do two completely different stuff. Mesos is not opinionated. It doesn't care how you do the deployments, what tooling you use, etc. It's just like, hey, this is like my contribution, and then you just build everything you want on the top. And Kubernetes try a little bit to tell you, now you have to use it this way, or this is the architecture that I want to use. So if you want to compare Kubernetes, the fair it would be that you compare it with Mesosphere. And if you compare Mesos, then you probably want to compare it, for example, with Yarn, which is the execution for Hadoop 2.0. And just finishing, this is our Mesos offer for you guys. It's been a challenge, and we actually need a lot of hands. I've been running this for the last 3 months by myself only because everyone in my team has left. No, it hasn't left. It just has been stolen. But anyway, like, if anyone is interested about what we do in the company, just don't hesitate to contact me or whoever you want from the company. Thank you very much. Any questions?